Okay, so we're getting ready to put our new oil filter in, and I thought I'd just take a second to talk to you about what sort of an oil filter, how it's made and what it does. So you see a bunch of holes in there, one big one in the middle with some threads on it. That's what's going to thread onto that shaft, and a bunch of smaller holes. And these different oil filters have different number of holes around that bigger threaded hole in the middle. And the oil comes in through those smaller holes, pushes out a little one-way rubber or silicone check valve, and that lets the oil flow in through the filter. And so it's kind of, I probably can't see it, it's too dark, but it's open in the middle, and then in sort of a donut configuration around here, there's just some cellulose or cellulose with synthetic blended porous material that the oil flows through and traps any particulate debris that might be collecting in your oil. And then it comes out back through this big threaded hole in the middle and goes into your drain pan. So it's a pressurized system. There's an oil pump in every car, and it pumps the oil up and through this and right out from this outlet from the filter and into your engine. As it collects, it just drains out your engine by gravity and back down into the oil pan where that oil drain plug sits, and then the pump takes it back up through the system. So that's just a little bit about oil filters there. And there are lots of different brands, and you know, it's sort of a pay for what you get sort of thing. Most cars will do just fine with regular oil change with some of the cheaper oil filters. If you have a more high performance car or a higher mileage car, you might want to go to the more expensive ones, and basically the only difference there is the material that they use in the cellulose or cellulose blend filters. Let's take a look here. We're just about done dripping from our shaft up here. I think they can get a decent view of that. And you see the threaded shaft there where the oil's still just dripping slowly out. And this has been a little while I've let this drip. And I don't know if you can really see, but there's two other holes there, and those are the that's where the oil, those come from the oil pump to pump the oil in through the filter, and like I said, it goes out through that threaded rod there. So we'll just clean this up a little bit with a rag, just to get any gunk off there. That oil's going to keep just sort of dripping slowly out of there into our oil pan. I was always taught, I'm not sure if there's any validity to this or not, but just to get a little better seal on this rubber O-ring here, and that's what actually sits up against the engine block, and because it is a pressurized seal, you want to make sure you've got a good seal there. I was always taught to sort of lubricate that up with a little fresh oil before we get started, so I'm just sticking a clean finger in here to my lawnmower motor oil. Just give that a little wipe. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure this is necessary, but this is the way I was taught to do it, so I still do it. And let's stick that new oil filter on there. And just like when we put the drain plug back in, there's a slow drip of oil coming out. But when we sort of flood that with our new oil, that'll be just fine. Now you don't have to put the oil filter on with the oil filter wrench. You can just make it finger tight, and it'll stay on there just fine. But you do want to get it nice and snug. So I'm going to get it as tight as I can with my hand, and that is tight enough. Okay, so there you go. And I'll just give that one final little wipe down here. And close up our compartment. Well, and now we can come up top and take our clean filter our clean funnel, and put that where we took the oil cap off before. Sorry about that. Hope nobody's getting nauseous. Needed 2 hands to get that done. And we'll just start pouring here. Obviously, it's easier to do this when you're not holding a camera. So it's important before you start pouring, do make sure you've got your drain plug in and your oil filter back on, because you could really get into some trouble. All this new fresh oil that you're putting in would drain right out onto the ground. And I went ahead and put in the whole 5 quarts. So we might be a little high on the oil. And also, once you're done, remember to put your cap back on. I have actually made that mistake once and didn't have to change the oil again, but I certainly had to clean up my engine a bit and add a little bit more oil. And we'll go ahead and just sort of as a double check that we got enough oil in there by all the sort of manufacturer specifications we should. But we'll go ahead and pull out this dipstick. And there'll be a mark on there. Different cars have different types of marks. This one is a little hatched pattern that marks the low spot and the high spot of what's normal operating range, and you can see I'm just a tad above that upper limit, but the oil hasn't sort of settled or run through the system yet, so that will end up just about at the upper limit of that thatched area once everything's turned on. A little more accurate way to do that, obviously, is to wipe the dipstick off once and then put it back in. That'll give you a more accurate reading, but that's also how to check your oil there. And we're done. I'm going to close up shop, and the truck is ready for another 3,000 to 5,000 miles. So here I just thought I'd show you one other component of the oil system. This is how much pressure the oil pump is putting out. And you can see in this vehicle it's supposed to operate at about 50 psi there. Most cars nowadays actually don't really have oil gauges. Most of them have oil lights, and they're just designed to come on when the oil pressure either gets too high or too low. That light will come on. Here you can see this truck's got 46,000, almost 500 miles on it. And so what I'll do now is I'll log in my little log that I just got set up, because I could never remember what exactly when exactly I was performing these maintenance operations. You can see here that I just did a radiator flush and put in a new air filter a couple hundred miles ago. and so we'll fill that out. So I figured we'd just do one last word about cleanup here. I've taken the oil out of the oil pan that we drained out and put it through a funnel back into the 5-quart jug here. It is nearly impossible to do that without getting a few drips, so you don't want to do that on your concrete driveway or certainly around any grass that you want to keep alive. I usually do it on our rock portion of our driveway here, and it's not going to, a couple drops isn't going to cause any real damage there. Obviously do your best not to spill any. You can't put a tarp down while you're pouring it out, but expect a few drops when you do that. I've also taken the oil filter that came off, and I've put that upside down in the oil pan there, and I'll let that drain out overnight, and then it's safe to go in the garbage. This will be taken back to the auto parts store for oil recycling program, and most auto parts stores here in the States will take oil back and recycle it for you. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching, and hope you learned something.